Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Woolwine. Today, we are welcomed with Rich Swann. How we doing, man?
Sir, I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
Great. Like I said, off air, excited to do this. Something we talked about at IWR WrestleFest, and we're making it happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm very happy to be here. And I love wrestling just like the rest of you. So I'm happy we can make this a possibility.
I love it. I love it. Before we get started into your wrestling career, you'd like to let the fans know where they can find you on social media, just so they can get updates and stuff like that.
Yes, indeedy. To get updates to find me and what I'm doing and all the hot stuff that I'm rocking, you can find me on Instagram under Wrestling Swan 91, or just try to add me on Facebook. I may be able to get to your friend request, but there are so many, so I try to get to them. But I'm just so grateful and thankful that I've been able to be on social media and feel the love.
Definitely, definitely.
Yes, indeed.
Um, my first question, it always starts pretty plain and simple. When did you find wrestling, and what about it made you fall in love?
Man, I found wrestling. Well, I didn't find it. It was actually, it was forced upon me. I was in the living room watching the Power Rangers, and my brother, he took the VHS out of the Power Rangers because it was 9 o'clock and he was just getting off of his basketball practice, and nobody was going to interrupt or intervene or come in front of his Monday Night Raw. So me being the little kid that I am, I have no choice but the fact that Bret Hart came out with that electric guitar, that song, that the fireworks everywhere, the color, the people, the cheering, it just glued me. I was hooked. I was glued to the television screen, and just being able to experience that and see that, hearing, I'm not gonna say the guy's name, but if it wasn't for Mr. VKM, wrestling would not be uh, looked at the way it is. And when he introduced Brett, what I'm saying, coming out, the hitman, the excellence of execution, I was hooked, bud. I was done, and was fan ever since. Never gave
That's
up on wrestling.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm guessing you watched it throughout your adolescence into growing up. What made you decide to start training and decide to take that leap from fan to performer?
I was always, like I always said, I was always somebody who just wrestling was my avenue. It was my escape for things that was going on at home. And, you know, once I moved from Baltimore, Maryland to York, Pennsylvania, there was a school that was readily available to me. Um, and I just like it was a no brainer when I had the opportunity in 2006 to decide to get trained. And just like other kids, of course, I did the backyard thing, as a kid, like just wrestling around anywhere and everywhere with my friends. But when I finally got that opportunity, it was a school called National Championship Wrestling. The trainer's name was Dirty Deeds Darren Wise. And I got trained by a guy. His name was Adam Flash. He had a lot of opportunities in the WCW, a lot of opportunities at the WWF. He was in the ECW before they closed down. He was somebody that could teach you every little thing from how to conduct yourself in the locker room and on the road. And, he was somebody that, like in CZW that, kind of opened my eyes. And then another person, his name was Ray Alexander. Oh my goodness, man. especially at a hard time in my life when I lost both of my parents. That dude would open up the gym for me, and we'd be in there every single day from freaking like as soon as I'd get out of school to, you know what I'm saying, whenever. Like just wrestling, just oh man, he'd show me the Eddie Guerrero, freaking Rey Mysterio, like to where you it was just crazy. It was just crazy. It was just nuts. It was just nuts. I don't want to give the tricks of the trade out, but
Fair enough.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was the difference between training there and then later on you'd go and do a little bit of training at the CSW Training Academy? What was the differences in doing those?
This the CSW.
CZW. I say
Oh, CZ.
CSW.
Yeah, yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir. At CZW. So training from that to going to CZW, um, the thing was the schools of Shakara, the Wrestle Factory, and the CZW school, it was in the very building that Sandman and Tommy Dreamer and RIP Sabu. You know what I'm saying? It was in the very building that these guys made so famous, made so legendary. You know what I mean? And to step into that building with that allure, already as a 18, 19-year-old kid, I'm like, I'm so grateful to have that opportunity. And then, you know what I'm saying, getting in there with Claudio Castagnoli and the Chris Heroes and the Drew Gulaks and the Ruckuses and the Black Jesus, like those guys, like just showing me the way, you know what I mean, from that young age, like it prepared me for so much more. I was able, to get opportunities, at such a young age that I'm so very fortunate for, like being able to go to Japan at 19, 20 years old to wrestle for Dragon Gate USA. And you know what I mean? Like wrestling in Japan and on those shows evolve and everything like that, that kind of shaped me and shaped my wrestling career and, kind of put into my brain, all right, if I really want to make it, I'm going to have to be at this type of level in the ring, but also bring it with the entertainment value as well. Like, yes,
Definitely. That leads perfectly into my next question, where as a lot of us fans might feel that when you started working with Dragon Gate, we got to see a different side of Rich Swann, maybe a more character-driven side. What about that promotion brought that out of you?
so a lot had to do with, you see guys like Shima, and guys like Little Dragon at the time was what he was going by, Dragon Kid, and you saw Yoshino, who was the legendary Yoshino and Yuki Doi, and these guys they all had characters, and so like for instance, like Milano Collection, AT and Magnum Tokyo, all these guys, like they were Italian. That was their so character. And Milano Collection AT, who's still around today, who does some stuff at New Japan and everything like that. Not wrestling, but commentating because he's a legendary figure. But this guy back in '99, 2000 would walk around with the leash but there was no dog. But everybody would believe they would believe in
Yeah.
his Italian dog. It's things like that. But then once the camera would turn on, once that red light would come on and that bell would ring, these guys would have some of the most athletic matches that you could ever think of. They'd go for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, sometimes 120 minutes, one match. You know what I'm saying? It'd be eight guys in one match, but the crowd would never, ever, ever be dull. It'd never be a dull moment. These people would have the people on the edge of their seats, from the edge of their seats to on the tip of their toes, to standing, to jumping for joy, to crying, to laughing, to yelling. Like these guys, they really made me think of, okay, what could I do? So like as a kid, I played guitar and I play it by ear, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna come up with a song for Chuck Taylor, myself, and Johnny Gargano, and it's gonna be stupid, but it's gonna catch on. And it caught on for that niche base, and from there, and they saw like my creativity and my fun side and everything like that. But then once I started wrestling and they saw that style, that kind of like solidified for them. Okay, this kid, we want to use him.
How cool has it been for to see guys like Gargano and Chuck Taylor and yourself go on from wrestling in like Dragon Gate or CZW, and now like Chuck Taylor's behind the scenes at AEW, Gargano has been NXT champion,
Mm-hmm.
yourself been cruiserweight champion, Impact champion. Like, what's it like to see you guys grow, develop, and blossom as superstars?
Man, it's amazing to see. I mean, like especially like Johnny alone. Like I saw him wrestle his hero. I mean, I don't want to speak for Johnny, but you know, like there is a style and a look that Alex Shelley had created and stamped on the independent scene and wrestling in general. Johnny Gargano kind of molded himself off of this style, and he made it his own. But to see those two wrestle at WrestleMania with Tommaso and Chris Sabin also as their counterparts, you know what I'm saying? Motor City Machine Gun, one of the most legendary teams in this industry, bar none. And then to do that with your, you know what I'm saying? That's his hero at man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like was it Mania or Rumble? I can't remember which one.
Uh,
But I know it
Rumble.
was yeah, it was a packed stadium. Like you can't get any better than that, right? And like then with Chucky, to be a part of a company that is, the new figurehead. It's another company for everybody to be able to apply their craft and be able to feed their families and enjoy what we love. Um, it's awesome to see Chuck Taylor and the matches that he had, the parking lot brawl in the back with FTR, you know what I'm saying, with Trent Beretta, like seeing matches like that from you know what I mean, fun loving Chuck Taylor, is nuts. And like I'll I have no, shame. Like back when I was our very first tour in Japan, it was me, Chucky, and Johnny, and we were supposed to be there for 3 weeks. We only were there for a week and a half because we got stuck because of the what was it, not hurricane, tsunami slash earthquake.
Yeah.
So we got stuck in the middle of that, and freaking but so throughout that tour though, I'm just a broke young kid. I'm 19 years old, 18 years old, something like that. And like I flew to Japan with like $10 in my pocket, literally. And I'm like, all right, how am I gonna survive? And Chuck Taylor, you know what I mean? He big brothered me, he helped me, he looked after me throughout that whole trip up until, you know what I'm saying, we got shipped back to the airport. And man, I'll never forget that. And I never did. And like Chuck Taylor, he's one of the like not just greatest wrestlers that I've ever been in the ring with, but like one of the best people. He's a real person. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for him, guys like Ricochet wouldn't be as good as he is today.
Right.
That's a shoot.
Okay. I like it.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
you know, you got to be a part of PWG, which
Yes,
recently
sir.
seems like it quietly shut down its doors. Uh, how does that kind of make you feel, and what was it like being able to work within that company?
PWG was one of, the greatest places that I've ever been able to wrestle. Um, just based off the fans and the vibe alone. Everybody that wrestled there, they were all going there to just have fun. And try to make a great product. And, that's carried over to AEW. You can see that they want to kind of give that same vibe, and they have. And they've keeping that same fan base, and it seems to be growing, which is lovely. Uh, and shout out to Super Dragon. I hope everything's good with him, and I don't want to put his situation or any situations out there. I just hope
Yeah,
that everything's good with those counterparts, and just my comments. It was a lovely time wrestling over there, and you know, it's definitely going to be something that's talked about in the wrestling industry for years. Legit.
probably forever. I mean, I know
Yeah.
as a fan, like the vibe of PWG alone drew me in, and I caught it late, I'll be honest, but like once I found it, I couldn't stop watching it. I would go back and watch every show, and it was one of those programs where you could watch the same pay-per-view over and over, and you're not going to get bored. You could watch
100%.
it over and over. So
I almost feel like the fire that, like, how GCW and Wrestling Revolver and House of Glory, like how um, these companies are able to do shows in multiple states. I almost feel like if PWG did that back in the day, it would have been, on fire. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It would have totally been like an ECW or like something of what AEW is today. You know, because that's how ever like if it wasn't Dragon Gate that anybody was to know me for, any wrestling fan, it would be, oh, that PWG match, that PWG. I still hear it till this day. It's insane.
Um, tell us what brought you into the WWE.
So what brought me into the WWE? Um, it was at an Evolve show, and there was a match between myself, AR Fox, and Uhan Nation versus Caleb Conley, Tony Nese, and I want to say, man, it's gonna bug me. It's gonna bug me. But so the rapper Wale, he hears about this and he sees it. He's a big wrestling fan at the time. It was around like the beginning, middle of 2014, and he hears about this, and he watches the clips and he loves what he sees. And so next thing I know, apparently, he tells Mark Henry, you know, hey, there's these guys that you guys should really check out. And next thing I know, I'm getting in contact with Mark Henry and Wale, and everything was happening so fast. It just was like, boom, 1 week I'm getting contacted by Mark Henry, and I don't even know the guy. But like 3 weeks later, I'm being told that I'm gonna have a tryout, and I have the tryout, and I'm in the tryout with Jeff Cobb, a couple other wrestlers, and then the rest are just like 6'7" athletes, 300 pounds, jacked. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh my goodness, we got to do all these Columbine workouts and strongman workouts, and they're not changing the weight for little old me. Um, and it was pretty insane, but you know, we got through it, especially, shout out to Jeff Cobb on that. Like, he was definitely a team player, and he was somebody that, especially for the people that didn't come from wrestling, um, you know, we were helping the people get through these drills that, and hitting the ropes, something that they've never done. Um, and it's awesome to see, when somebody doesn't come from this world and they're able to experience it and really see, that this isn't just a walk in the park. This isn't just an everyday thing. This isn't just something that you can step into and just, you know, be a star. you got to really earn it. Um, and the tryout was just it was amazing, but I was told no, that they weren't going to sign me. Um, and after that, I waited a couple of months. I kept my head down, kept doing what I was doing. And a couple months later, after that, I got told from Kalen Seaman, who was the talent relations at the time, that, you know, I came up and that, they wanted to offer me a contract because, I worked very hard during the tryout and that I earned my spot, but I just didn't, I just wasn't able to be signed just due to my size and stature and my age at the time. I was 23. And, but I just, I took it on the chin. It hurt, but, because it almost feels like you work so hard that your dream is being, you know, but you think of it in another light that I'd been in wrestling for so long at that point that I'm used to, if something is told to you, it's not gonna happen until it happens.
Yeah.
So I just kept my head down, kept working in Japan, kept going to Mexico, Canada, and just had a good attitude about everything. And then if any of my friends ever were to be signed, like my good friend Sammy Callahan was signed, El Generico, who was Sami Zayn, and Kevin Steen, and Brody Lee, and Samurai Del Sol, you know what I'm saying? Pac. You're watching all these guys, and they're going to NXT and WWE, and you're like, all right, okay, hopefully I can, work hard and get my opportunity. And the opportunity finally came, and it was something that I'll never forget and I'll always cherish.
What was it like for you to be a part of the historic Cruiserweight Classic?
Oh, it was definitely, it was an honor. It was something that I think a lot of people, look at as something that, could be, it could be like WWE's version of the Super Juniors. It could literally be something that, people look forward to every year because it was something that was exciting. It was something that I feel that WWE hadn't really done in a long time. Like just inviting people from all around the world and not just somebody that was on the roster. We had Zack Sabre Jr., we had Kota Ibushi, we had, Grand Metalik, who at the time was Mascara Dorada. And shout out to the brand new Mascara Dorada. He is insane. But I
Yeah.
feel like anybody that has that mask with the no mouth and the zigzag, you're gonna be crazy. Like, because you've got to be insane to have no open mouth as it
Yes.
is, especially in those like arenas. Oh my god, no! Please don't give me that. I like cardio. I love it, but not that much. Oh my goodness. But like you had guys like that, and then you had new faces from, what I'm saying? Like it definitely gave a spotlight. You had Tristan from France. It gave us Fabian Eichner, who turned out to be one of Gunther's right
Imperium.
hand men. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It gave us so much. It gave us Gulak. It gave us Cedric Alexander, which, in my opinion, was one of the greatest matches to ever be in a WWE platform, which was Cedric Alexander versus Kota Ibushi, where at the end, the crowd is so in tune with what they just saw, and the people are so in tune with what they just saw. The head honcho Triple H came out himself and said, "Yeah, we got him. Yeah, we got him. He's here. He's with us." Like that, even thinking about every time I bring it up, it gives me goosebumps. But the Cruiserweight Classic, just to even be a part of it, and to have the moments that I had, and I was able to work with legendary Shawn Michaels and legendary Terry Taylor, and that, you know, We had Morrow and Brian Danielson on the commentary, like every single match. Like it was the birth of, seeing Tommaso and Johnny, have their singles match when they had been brought in on NXT for several weeks prior leading up, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then they had that match. That was like the little cracks of, oh, could these guys ever split? Could that ever happen? Like it just gave so much story. And then, to have it leveraged to having Stephanie come on Raw 2 weeks prior to the championship being made after the final or before the finals and saying that, hey, the cruiserweights are exclusive to Monday Night Raw. You know what I'm saying? Like to hear that is like, what? Oh yeah, we're in business. We're cooking. Like the classic could be, done again, and I feel like it could open so many doors. Like that's
100%.
how I feel about it. Yeah.
I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but you go on to join TNA after your WWE departure, and you have a lot of success, X Division champion, and then you'd ultimately defeat Eric Young to become Impact champion.
Yes,
What
sir.
was that? What was that like? Fighting throughout the ranks and then recovering from injury and coming back and taking down Eric Young to be Impact champion.
Man, that was something that was it was something that again I hold very near and dear to my heart because fast or rewind 8 months prior to that, I had broke my back, my leg, my fibula, my tibia, my foot, my ankle. I had a metal plate put in my foot. I had 3 rods put across the ankle, three like screws across both sides, so 6 in total of my ankle on the right and left side. My ankle was crushed like a soda can, or not my ankle, my Achilles was crushed like a soda can, so they had to stretch that out. And they put like it was just insane. And so the doctor told me that I wasn't going to wrestle the same again, let alone like or not walk the same again, let alone wrestle. And so, after that, COVID happened and I'm doing the physical therapy by myself, and it was definitely stressful, but there was just nothing that was going to take wrestling away from me. This is everything that I've loved. It's saved my life. It's something that I'll never ever take for granted. And being told that you're not going to walk, let alone wrestle, like it does something to your psyche. And I just pushed and pushed and pushed, and I pushed so hard, and I got myself ready in 8 months, and I came back and I wrestled, and then to have the opportunity to, you know, be a champion for a company that I, watched as a teenager, growing up into an adult, like and into wrestling. A company that I watched while I was in training. It was an honor. And it's something that nobody will be able to take away from me, and that I'll always cherish.
Uh, One more question, then I'll let you go. What can we expect out of Rich Swann in the future? Like, what's next in the already legendary career of Rich Swann?
Well, what's next for me is you're gonna see me in the best shape of my life, and just keep on watching every single product because you never know where I'm gonna party all night long, baby.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Rich, I just want to say thank you once again for coming on here. It was an honor to have you, and I hope we can do it at part two.
Yes, sir. We'll definitely get a part two, and thank you for having me, my brother.
Um, I'll just leave this. I'll see you next time then.
Hey, yes, sir.